1960s, you're forced into a trap by a bunch of dumb old men from the 1600s because they were working for the dogs because they stupidly got their attention. Patrick Schramm remembers.
Welcome, human factors, Dalek factors, and Daleks with a human up their ass. Yes, I know that's a different serial. To the 105th episode of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 6th of May, 2015, and featuring The Evil of the Daleks, written by David Whitaker. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hi.
Sounds like as a group we're in a much better mood than last week. There's no grunts or other sounds of dissatisfaction there.
I just ate. I'm happy.
If we had started on time 25 minutes earlier, that might have been a different story.
I would have been hangry.
Mm-hmm. Ron, want to start the news off with birthdays?
All right. So we're going to start off here with a happy birthday to Richard E. Grant, known as the alternative Ninth Doctor, or from the Matt Smith seasons, the Great Intelligence, or Dr. Simeon, depending on your choice. Some of you still think of Ian McKellen as the Great Intelligence, what he became afterwards. He turned 58 on the 5th, which is yesterday. And currently, I can't seem to find that he's doing anything of note. Apparently, he came out with a new cologne last year, and he might just be sitting on his residuals.
Interesting.
Milking that cologne money.
Hey, if you're popular enough to get your own cologne, I would probably sit back on my residuals too, you know? People that are not familiar with him, Doctor Who, and if you're not familiar with him, why are you listening to this podcast? You might remember him as John Seward in the 1992 film Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Happy birthday, Richard.
Happy birthday.
And we really would have liked to seen your Ninth Doctor a little more.
Indeed. Okay.
There's one other birthday today that we kind of squeaked in at the last minute into our news,
and
that
therefore
is
wasn't
that,
assigned to anybody?
Yeah. That George Clooney turned 54 today. George Clooney would be most known to sci-fi fans as Batman from Batman and Robin, I believe.
And we're sorry about that.
So sorry.
Also, of course,
and so is he.
The titular character in the Oceans remakes.
He was also one of the criminal brothers from Dusk Till Dawn, which was actually a pretty good movie.
And a lot of older viewers may remember him on the series ER when it first came out.
He was Quentin Tarantino's brother?
Yes.
Ah. Did not realize that.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, not in real life.
In the movie, not in real life.
Yes, I get that.
Yes.
I just couldn't remember the characters' names, so I knew who Tarantino was. So.
Happy birthday, George! You can take solace in knowing you're still younger than Richard E. Grant.
Yes.
That's probably not going to change anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
It will once Grant dies, but let's not hope that doesn't happen anytime soon.
Yeah, don't be starting to knock on that door, please.
Speaking of
deaths,
people
dying,
yes. Yes. We have lost someone. General Cobb from the Doctor's daughter Nigel Terry passed away due to emphysema on April 30th.
I take it then he was a bit of a smoker.
Yep. I imagine so. He was 69 years old.
Yeah, that's a bit young to go.
In addition to playing General Cobb in Doctor Who, he is probably most well known for playing King Arthur in the John Boorman film Excalibur.
That was King Arthur?
Yes.
I have to.
Bastard and Doctor's daughter was King Arthur?
Yes.
Wow.
Dang,
Okay.
I did not recognize him.
Well, it's been like 20, 30 years.
Yes, I know.
And yeah, I haven't watched Excalibur all the way through yet. I do have, I believe I just recently got a DVD copy not too long ago.
I own it on DVD. I'm a big Arthurian fan, so I've seen that movie countless times.
It's been on my list. I know the Merlin scene a little bit.
I didn't know they made a movie about Caravaggio. Interesting artist. He was in Highlander, but not the Highlander?
I think they were talking about the TV series Highlander.
Ah, okay.
Highlander the series.
Mm-hmm.
Which I recently picked up on VHS for really cheap, but I'm not sure we have a working VCR to watch it on, so we're checking for that.
I
now.
have some of it on DVD. Actually, I have a good chunk of it on DVD.
Also, it says he contracted
It was-
emphysema.
Yeah, you contract it by smoking too much.
Oh, no.
I was gonna say I didn't know it was contagious.
It's not contagious, but you get it from smoking. Smoking causes the smoke in your lung, causes your lungs to harden, which causes emphysema. It's just their way of putting it.
Unfortunately, we do have another lost story this week. This one is not from Doctor Who, but a Star Trek actress, Grace Lee Whitney, who played Yeoman Rand in the first season of the original series and in the films.
The first 8 episodes.
I wasn't sure exactly how many. I knew she was written out during that season, but she passed on Friday the 1st at the age of 85. I think we can assume natural causes at that point, but she did have a struggle with a few addiction-related problems back in the 60s, which is why she left Star Trek to begin with.
That's why she didn't left. She was canned from Star Trek for addiction to diet pills and alcoholism.
To be fair, that's still leaving.
That particular getting fired sent her into a downward spiral that found her on Skid Row into the early to mid 70s. But she cleaned up her act in time to be sober enough for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where she appeared in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, and Star Trek 6, where she was, by that point, her character Janice Rand was a commander and first officer on the USS Excelsior under Captain Sulu. She would also reprise that role for a special episode of Star Trek Voyager, where they're basically viewing the events on the Excelsior through the mind of Tuvok, who also served on the ship at the time. That was her last outage as Janice Rand. She was a convention favorite. So this is a bad year for the Star Trek convention circle.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Because they lost Nimoy, which was huge, and now they've lost Grace Lee Whitney. And it's only May.
Yeah, it's only May when we lost 2 Trekkies.
Before you know it, Shatner will be gone. Nichelle Nichols. Enjoying more of
Soldier
what'll happen is Nichelle Nichols will go, George Takei will go, everybody but Shatner will linger on.
The internet will have a moment of silence when Takei goes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there'll be a long day of silence.
Facebook will become a much more boring
William
place.
Shatner will linger on. He'll be like Keith Richards. People will wonder how he's not dead.
Well, we do know that Shatner is supposed to live for about 100 years after most of his colleagues pass. But then again, so is Spock. So
again, Spock's just waiting on another planet for us to find him again.
yeah.
Somewhere out there, mankind will descend on a planet, and there will be Leonard Nimoy going, "Live long and prosper." So I think we can move on from our lost stories into our Series 9 news. And the big news is that Gemma Redgrave, who fans will remember plays Kate Stewart, has announced that she's appearing in episodes 7 and 8 of the new series, which indicates that it's the fourth two-parter, meaning we are probably correct in that they're all going to be two-parters and maybe a one-off or a three-parter. And that particular block will begin filming soon in Cardiff.
Interesting.
She posted a video. Was that courtesy of the BBC?
Yes, it was.
Courtesy of the BBC, then. If you remember, Kate Stewart first appeared in the 7th season episode The Power of Three, and then came back for Day of the Doctor.
Which is only partially true. That was her first canon appearance, but she did first appear in Downtime by, what the hell are their names? That one of the spin-off. Real-time
I'm only referring to canon appearances, Bill.
It was Mark Platt. That makes it canon.
But anyway, her last appearance was in the Series 8 finale, Death in Heaven. Also of note that while this is going on, Big Finish, of course, is working on a whole unit spin-off featuring the same character.
Yep.
So this will be the first time that a person working for Big Finish, other than Nicholas Briggs, is also appearing in Doctor Who.
Yep.
I would have to check dates on Sarah Jane things to confirm that, because I know that Liz Sladen as an adult was on both, but I don't remember if there was overlap. I believe her
Sarah Jane stories were actually done before her appearance in that, and then she was scheduled to do more afterwards. But she died before she could do
right. Them. And I think David Tennant's Big Finish stuff was all before he became the Doctor.
Usually, though, you're not working both simultaneously. And this, I mean, literally, right. If she's filming this, she's probably going straight from Cardiff to Big Finish's headquarters and back. Because I think they're working on both at the same time right now. Or she's taking time out from Big Finish to do this.
We're also ignoring Tom Baker, but then again, he only had a cameo rather than a...
Yeah, the cameos don't count. He had a 5-minute segment. And she's going to be featuring for a two-parter here, and then going back to Big Finish to finish the unit series. But it's interesting to note that they're actually letting unit canon continue in both the New Who and Big Finish, because usually the two have been very exclusive. It is definitely a sign that the license for Big Finish is getting loosened by the BBC.
Which is a good thing for them.
I just wanted to double check quick. Someone is watching the channel, right? To make sure that this is all going through okay?
Not at the moment. I can try to.
I can see if I can pull it up, but I usually can't have Skype and Twitch running at the same time.
I'm probably going to bring up the dashboard.
Anyway, continue on.
So, there is a competition to win some art by artist Deborah Taylor, who was commissioned to draw a drawing for the 10-year anniversary of New Who. It's a 18 by 24-inch picture depicting all of the current Doctors, including John Hurt, along with all the companions. And to win this drawing, all you have to do is answer the question, who was Rose Tyler looking for in the basement of Henrik's in the episode Rose? Send your answer along with your name and address to comp-artwork@doctorwhonews.net with the subject fantastic with the exclamation point. The competition is open worldwide, closing date May 14th, 2015. Only one entry per household, please.
It's got 9 more days.
Yep. I'll probably enter it because that's just a matter of watching a bit of Rose to remember the name of the person that they want to put in the email.
Yeah.
And then put that in, and you might win that, especially with a worldwide draw. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Of course, it means your odds of winning are really, really, really slim.
Right. Although this is hosted by DoctorWhoNews.net rather than the BBC, so I have no idea what their actual reach is.
True.
I mean, granted, it's definitely in the hundreds, possibly thousands, but it's not like something, not like a BBC competition where it's tens or hundreds of thousands. Next announcement is that BBC Books has announced The Scientific Secrets of Doctor Who book to be released the 4th of next month. The book is written by novelists Simon Guerrier and Dr. Merrick Kukula, sorry if I mispronounced that, of the Royal Observatory Greenwich, and is the first official guide to the science of Doctor Who. The book is available for pre-order on Amazon in both ebook and hardcover formats.
All right. So, the Czech Republic's, how the heck do you say that? Brno?
I would assume Brno, yeah.
Brno Planetarium is set to premiere a new unofficial Doctor Who inspired presentation with music and sound by Duncan Henley and visuals by David Konecki. The presentation features multiple doctors, none of which played by their original actors. Duncan Hendy, John Guillor plays the first, third, and fourth, and fifth Doctors. Christopher Thompson as the second Doctor, and Elliot Crosley as the 10th Doctor. Jake Dudman as the 11th and 12th Doctors. And it has a whole special plot line. There is a schism, a splintering fracture running through the fabric of space and time. All that was and all that will never be existing exactly the same temporal point. Blink and you miss millennia. Sleep and planets simply burn out and die. The Doctor needs you Earth people to help him to try to save the universe and prevent all creation from collapsing on itself. I listened to this 1 minute video, and some of the acting for the voices is actually pretty good. A couple of them are not the greatest.
There's also a 5-minute one where when I watched that one, it automatically recommended it, so I listened to it, which has a couple more of them. So altogether, I've heard the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and I thought it was all fairly good. They're not going to be winning any awards for sound-alikes, but they sounded pretty good and did, they matched the inflections of the Doctors, at least as far as I can tell.
The second Doctor I found was pretty good.
Second Doctor, I think, had the shortest bit, too.
Yeah, the 12th I was not particularly impressed with.
The first, I think, was the one they did the best, but that was in the
really?
In the longer video. If you only listen to the one on Doctor Who
I only listened
News,
to the 1 minute video.
That was there. Yeah.
There was a bit of the first in there, and I was not. That was the one I was second least impressed with.
The longer video is the one that the quote that you read was pulled from. It's not included in the shorter one. It's in the longer one.
Either way, I was
altogether. I'm kind of wondering about the legality of this, but I mean,
they might have gotten permission.
They might have. I honestly have no idea. I mean,
if they didn't and they're getting away with it, it's a little hopeful for me. But yeah.
I mean, that's why I don't know Czech Republic copyright laws. I don't know what presence BBC has there or anything like that. So.
The thing is that BBC is usually pretty fast and loose. As long as you're not making money off of it, they're usually not going to be pursuing you. But
although
at the
if
same
it's an
time,
attraction for a place, I imagine they're making some sort of profit from it.
it's for the planetarium, which might be a non-profit planetarium. I can't tell you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. You know, if all their all their money is making is only going to covering operating costs, That's one thing that the BBC might be considering. I don't know. The fact that they're doing it, though, probably means that they've already checked out the legality of it and have gotten cleared.
Right.
Yeah, and it's also being advertised on Doctor Who News, so...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's not going to be happening if they're pirating.
Okay, I thought I recognized this name. John Galore has done other work as both the first and fourth Doctor in both DVD releases and fan pieces for Doctor Who. So he is not a stranger to doing this. Although I'm not seeing anything of him doing the third or fifth before this. He was the one who did the first Doctor in Day of the Doctor, when William Hartnell said calling the War Council of Gallifrey.
Yeah, and that wasn't bad.
Right. So that explains why I said the first Doctor sounded good, because he's done this before.
Yeah, I think in the particular clip they were using, in the short one, he just sounded too young. So maybe that was just a bad take or something.
Maybe.
Anyway, I think we spent plenty of time on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so on to Big Finish news, which Big Finish actually does have some big news. We were talking earlier about Big Finish's new unit stories featuring Gemma Redgrave. They have now announced Torchwood, The Conspiracy, and 5 more monthly releases beginning September of 2015, which are currently available for pre-order. John Barrowman is the only cast member announced yet, with more to be revealed later. So this is a huge step toward New Who, considering this is the first range that is very specifically, obviously the Unit range is featuring New Who characters, but Unit existed from Classic Who. Torchwood did not. Torchwood is entirely a Russell T Davies invention.
It is. It is also an indicator that the BBC has given up on making a new series of Torchwood, and have just given it to Big Finish at this point. I know they had been looking for more, but there was a matter of finding a good script, B, budget cutbacks at the BBC, and C, getting the cast back together. It'll be interesting to see when this particular Torchwood takes place. Whether it's going to occur prior to the Torchwood series, which case, what's-her-face, Gwen, will not be in it.
Right.
But they can use, they can't use Gwen. I don't think they can use Ianto, but they can use some of the
If they use Ianto, it would have
characters.
to be set within that very short few-month period, because Ianto had been there maybe a month, maybe a month when Gwen joined.
Whether they're going to set it between Series 1 and Series 2, when I think they had still their full main original cast, or whether they're going to be setting it after, like, Miracle Day, where, all they had was Jack, Gwen, and the new guy. It'll be interesting to see which way they decide to go with it.
Right. And I don't want to linger on it too long, but I know there was some discussion as to, who this is going to give Big Finish the rights to in the Big Finish listeners Facebook group. We were discussing the fact that Martha Jones, falls kind of into the same category as Captain Jack, and it would be very interesting if this gives them the right, and Freema Agyeman comes, to use Martha in Big Finish productions.
Well, technically, they have the rights to both Torchwood and Unit.
Yeah. She's
of course,
in
the
both.
last time we saw Martha, she's a freelance alien hunter now. And if they get Freema Agyeman, are they also going to be able to get Noel Clarke?
Yes, that was something I was wondering as well. He never did appear actually on Torchwood, though, so he's a little less likely.
He's so sad.
Yeah, but if they're going to continue with the New Who continuity, you really can't have one without the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just rewrite it.
The other piece of Big Finish news that we have is that May's entry to the monthly short trips range has been released. That is The King of the Dead, featuring Peter Davison. When the Doctor, Nyssa, and Tegan arrive in 1980s London, they find the current hot ticket is The King of the Dead, an interactive theater experience they've inadvertently become part of. The Doctor settles into his usual role, trying to save the day after discovering an alien presence, but it's Nyssa who finds herself dealing with someone who is working from a different script entirely.
Short trips is short trips. They're usually just little 1-episode audios. So that's not going to be that big of an episode. What were you saying about the previous one, Aaron?
Oh, I was going to say maybe they're going to do something completely different or not completely different with Torchwood. Maybe they're going to introduce the concept that RTD originally planned for Torchwood, but that got truncated and changed around and kind of like
You mean the one with Noel Clark?
I think so, yeah, where Mickey and Martha were both in Torchwood, and like wasn't he going to do something where he continued on with that, but he couldn't, so he had to make Children of Earth instead?
Yeah. What happened was Torchwood Series 3, Russell T Davies had already run a season-long script for. Part of the thing was that they were going to pick up both Mickey and Martha as new members of Torchwood during Series 3, and they were going to come together and fall in love. But due to budget cutbacks and Freema Agyeman signing on to Law & Order UK, they were unable to get Martha Jones, and they weren't able to go for the full length, so that entire storyline got axed. Russell T Davies was able to play lip service to it in End of Time, showing them together and married, but that was pretty much all that we ever saw, and many people thought it came out of the blue. No, it came out of a Torchwood's plot that never happened.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, trying to go back and do that would be attempting to rewrite Torchwood history, and would be a very good way of Big Finish losing its license from the BBC really quickly.
If they do have the rights to Mickey, I could see them doing, a few adventures that feature them without going as in depth as season 3 was going to. I mean, they would probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they specifically reach out to Russell for his opinion on that. But Russell, I know in the article already gave his opinion that he was in favor of this move, or at least publicly. So I imagine he would be down for something like that. But
Russell has been a big proponent of Torchwood in general.
Right.
It is actually more his baby, I think, than Doctor Who, since Doctor Who was somebody else's baby he just nursed back to life, whereas Torchwood created from the ground up. Still, I don't know what they're planning. The fact that we don't know who's going to be in it, it's really too early to speculate at this point.
Yeah, I think they're giving time to time for the cast to answer back and everything. I know Eve Miles has wanted to do more Torchwood stuff, and I feel like I'm honestly not sure how much of the cast has been in the BBC, the ones that BBC Radio have been doing. I feel like most of the cast have been in there, but they're probably still waiting, for people to answer back and everything and make schedules and such.
Well, yeah. I mean, they have to haul Malcolm Merlin all the way from Hollywood or Vancouver or whatever the hell they film Arrow to be Captain Jack again.
Right.
Well, and
Barrowman's the only one that they have confirmed is in it. So.
Yes, I know, but they have to.
And this ship it through
I'm
email?
I'm not sure how Big Finish works in that, whether they will film all the lines separately or film them as a group.
They do either, depending on needs, but I don't know whether or not they have recording studios in the States.
Yeah, either way, he has to do it between, his filming time on Arrow, and Big Finish needs to revolve their production schedule around that. Also, I do not know what Eve Miles is up to, but if she's in something, they have to film they also have to get the production schedule around that. So it could be it's just taking a while to get the band together.
And it could end up being quite the hodgepodge.
All right. So I think that's done with our major news.
Yep.
I know that at least some of us have already gone to see Avengers: Age of Ultron. I know Aaron and I have.
I have.
Yep.
I still have to see it.
I don't know when I'm going to be able to see it.
Matt's royally behind on the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill scheduled some time here for us to talk a bit about the movie.
Yeah, we'll be keeping it as spoiler-free as possible.
Thank you.
Everybody dies.
No!
Punch the soul.
Everybody dies.
It's
Yeah, that
Whedon,
scene
not
where
it's
Iron
Whedon,
Man
not
blew
George
up and
Martin.
all
It's
that
only-
chunks of meat and metal went all over the place. That was so awesome.
It's not George Martin. Whedon only kills the characters you really care about.
And that scene where Ultron squashed Thor with his own hammer.
At least
Oh,
the Hulk
man.
and Captain America get to die in each other's arms.
Somebody's writing a slash fiction as we speak.
You're actually expecting Aaron not to?
She's probably reading one right now.
You can watch
anyway,
the
Bill,
channel yourself.
So anyway, Bill, before Aaron and I give our 5 cents, let's hear yours.
Basically, I feel like the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of hampered this in the fact that instead of focusing on telling an original good story, they focused on continuing the legacy. As a result, the first half of the movie feels like Joss Whedon trying to get all of his Avengers jokes out before he doesn't have a chance, and then starting the plot. Which means it's still enjoyable, but to actually come out and say that the story is good and that it's fully fleshed out, I cannot say that. It's an enjoyable, fun time to watch.
Yeah.
Before going to see this movie, I read a review from the BBC of somebody who had seen it, and he had the complaint that at no time to the movie do you feel like the Avengers are in any actual life-threatening danger. And I have to kind of agree with that. Every time they're on the scene, they're going large, they're cracking jokes, or they're at each other's throats. So
there is one time where you kind of feel like the Avengers are going to lose, but then I'm pretty sure that the fight pretty much stops at that point and it doesn't get driven home. So everyone gets to regroup and get ready for the next scene.
And Ultron came across as way too congenial.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, if they were going to come with that route with Ultron, they should have basically let... oh, God, my brain just died on the name. Oh, what's his face? Scar from The Lion King voice.
Jeremy Irons.
Jeremy Irons,
Jeremy
thank
Irons.
you. Because the way they did Ultron in this, he was essentially Megabyte from Reboot.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, yes, and by the way, I'm here to kill you all. And I'm like, really?
I kind of saw him as a blend of Tony Stark, which was intentional things, because obviously he was created by Stark in all the trailers and everything. You can tell that. A little bit of the Joker, and a bit of Spike from Buffy, which was Whedon. There were quite a few moments where I was like, that was vintage Spike.
Yeah. I was ready for this franchise to move out into outer space, like at the end of the first Avengers film. And this just, I've been spoiled by Guardians of the Galaxy. I wanted to see the Avengers fight Thanos and destroy the
I think that's a large part of it.
Here.
After us seeing Thanos in 2012, the fact that we're not fighting him yet makes this feel like a filler episode.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of worried would happen too. They're not moving fast enough.
It's really they put out the Thanos spoil too early.
Yeah,
it would have been better at the end of this than at the end of the original Avengers. They should have the end of the original Avengers should have had Tony Stark typing or working at one of his virtual terminals, and you should have seen something in there called Project Ultron.
Yes. Now that said, this movie did tie a lot more into the Thanos plot than I expected it to at first.
Mm-hmm.
It also actually tied a little bit more into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. than I had originally expected to, having seen the previous week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I was a little
What
lost.
you got at the end of that was what you got at the end of that was you got Matt and Tim might want to cover. Actually, no, considering the fact that they deal with this in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ended last week with them raiding a Hydra base and them discovering details on Loki's staff and where it's located. And you get Coulson going, time to call in the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Avengers starts with them going from the woods, raiding the Hydra base that has Loki's staff.
We also find out that one of the plot points they've been stressing out about in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a big spoiler from the end of Age of Ultron. So that ties that up, and then the next episode continues with that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So while Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't required viewing, it's recommended viewing.
Right.
Yeah.
Similar to the situation with the Winter Soldier.
It's Winter Soldier was even more detailed than this.
True, yeah.
I would actually say the episode after is more
like
important than...
Yeah, like in that case, it's more you can't really keep watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. without knowing what happens in Winter Soldier. Whereas,
I did. I just got lost.
Yeah.
I watched Winter Soldier like 4 months later and went, oh, that's what happened. In this one, I was prepared for that because I knew we were going to see I knew we were going to see Avengers.
Right.
So I think it was last Thursday or last Friday, I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. up to the last episode.
That said, if I had watched this episode before watching Ultron, I would have been annoyed because the big reveal of the Theta Protocol or whatever they're calling it was I would say a good moment in the film not to be spoiled on.
Yes. It is kind of nice seeing it in order. That said, where this is tying into the rest of the MCU, pretty much is what everybody's guessing. They're slowly revealing what the Infinity Stones are and what they're used for. And I think we've seen 4 of what they've said were 6 stones.
There was one in Thor: The Dark World, one in Guardians of the Galaxy, one here, one in the previous Avengers movie / Captain America.
So we've got 4 stones. 4. So we need to have the reveal for 2 more stones prior to the Infinity War, which is going to be the next Avengers movie.
How much you want to bet one of the stones is involved with Ant-Man?
I would not be shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember which stones have been revealed yet off the top of my head. I know
it's also possible, but not likely, that one of the stones may be revealed in the upcoming Marvel Netflix series.
I don't think so because I mean, even like Whedon had specifically pointed out that there are going to be a lot of people watching the movies but not the shows, and they don't want they don't want you to need to watch the shows to fully keep up with what's going on in the movies, which is
that's
part
why
of the
I
reason
said it
why
was possible but not likely.
Yeah, I don't even. I mean, possible in the sense of if you have an infinite improbability device, it might happen.
Well, what I mean is
they
might show they might introduce it there and then reintroduce it in a movie.
That might happen. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What we do know is that films that are planned to come out at this point, Ant-Man is the end of Phase 2. And that's coming out in July. And that'll be the end of Marvel movies for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out next year, we're seeing Captain America: Civil War.
That's probably because they don't want to compete with the other branch of Disney in December.
Quite possible.
Star Wars.
We have Captain America: Civil War, Doctor Strange, both due out next year.
Strange, I'm sure, is going to introduce a new stone.
Oh, I bet you
Yeah.
they'll introduce one there for sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Untitled Spider-Man film, which is,
Which is
actually
Sony.
supposed to be in the MCU.
But yeah, it'll be Sony, but it's also supposed to be an MCU, and
Yeah.
since it's going to be that, it's going to be a reboot again.
But this one's going to tie into the MCU.
So
And
here's
that's
praying.
coming out. The Untitled Spider-Man and Thor Ragnarok are supposed to all come out in 2017.
You know what? I just realized? If they're starting a new Spider-Man franchise now, Kingpin is officially established in the MCU now.
Mm-hmm.
He can show up, guys. Don't fuck this up.
Do it, do it, do it.
Yes, they can. Let's see. And then we've got, well, mind you, while this is going on, there's going to be a second season of Daredevil. We then have Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Black Panther and Captain Marvel in 2018. Very interesting, because if they're going with the canon Marvel that we all know, he's a Kree.
They've established it will be Carol Danvers. Although I'm kind of hoping that Marvel appears in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. around that time.
Okay. That would be kind of interesting. And then in 2019, we've got Infinity War Part 2 and the Inhumans. The Inhumans, of course, are a big thing in this particular season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes. And all the more
coming out,
reason for Marvel to appear in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before the human Captain America appears in the movie.
Also, let's see, we've had Daredevil come out. We are expecting AKA Jessica Jones to come out within the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be leading directly into another Netflix series, which is going to be Luke Cage.
Wasn't there also supposed to be something with Iron Fist?
Yes, but that's been postponed.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
That's been postponed because
Netflix.
Netflix, Marvel's Luke Cage is supposed to come out in 2016. And instead of Iron Fist, what they have done is they've already booked Daredevil season 2. Because Daredevil was huge. Daredevil was so successful, it crashed Netflix.
I was going to say, I think the callback on Daredevil is pretty big.
That's what happens when you upload an entire season of of a previously unreleased show in a popular franchise at once.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched Daredevil. I watched all 13 episodes of Daredevil. And it's pretty good.
Did I tell you guys what I did? I watched the first episode on release day, and then I found out like a week later that the entire season had gone up at once, and then I had to go back and watch it.
How did you not notice the other episodes? Because
I watched the first episode, and then I stopped and did something else, thinking I had watched all there was for that week. Because that's what you do on Hulu.
Nope. They're releasing it. They're just dumping it on Netflix all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's the way of the future.
The big thing is though, like I said, is that it was so successful that Daredevil season 2 has been pushed up into 2016. So Luke Cage and the Defenders, Iron Fist and the Defenders, which is supposed to be Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, all in a team up, is currently put on their to be announced, to be determined list. They're still in very early production stages. Also rumored is that in Daredevil season 2, we are supposed to see the Punisher.
I would not mind that or be too surprised.
And that might lead into a Punisher TV series or Netflix series. Which is and another team up team up series.
Marvel owns the rights to Punisher, or does somebody else? I forget who
the rights for the Punisher, I think, has reverted back to Marvel.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the rights have reverted back to them now recently.
Although apparently the rights to the Hulk are still in the hands of Universal, which is apparently why
For
we have
another
not gotten another Hulk movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if the rights had reverted from Universal to Marvel already, there is a scene in the Avengers which would have been entirely different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that Bill knows the one I'm talking about.
Right.
I could tell you guys, but it would be a spoiler.
Oh, the new movie. Okay, the new Avengers.
Yes, they're talking about in Avengers 2, Age of Ultron.
Yes.
I just hope that I can maintain my interest in the MCU for long enough, because I've been waiting for Infinity War for a while now.
I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, they're close enough that if there's a movie or two you don't care about, it doesn't hurt to skip it. Like, I was not a fan of the first Thor, and I still have not seen the second Thor. It's not that I'm avoiding it, but I don't really care whether or not I get it either. I mean, I know it ties into the Infinity War plot, but
you're
positive
deliberately
things about the
missing
second
Chris
either.
Eccleston as the evil elf.
Yeah. I've also heard that one was even worse than the first Thor, so I'm not exactly rushing.
Depends
to
on
it
who
either.
you talk to.
Yeah, apparently that one.
I know, because there are some
I've talked
people.
to some
Some
people who
people
thought
I
it
know
was
of are
much
talking
better
about
than
how
the
Thor
first
is the
one.
best movie in the MCU, and I'm like, honestly, I don't think anything in Phase One other than Avengers is that great of a movie, like as a unique entity.
Iron
Because
Man
so many
1.
of them are.
Yeah.
Most of Phase One is remakes of Spider-Man with a different lead.
That's
I would have to argue that Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, is that good.
Yeah.
I disagree, but
Anyways, we've been circling this topic a while now.
Yeah, we're on
Yes,
the part
we
where
have.
we normally start. Like I've been watching the clock just in case, but yeah, we're getting close to where we would normally start the summary.
All right. Well, Matt has, since he's not doing the streaming today, and couldn't do the news, he is volunteered to do the summary. And
Yes,
are you going to take my challenge to do it in 5 minutes or less?
I will attempt to try and do this in 5 minutes or less.
This episode,
All right.
This isn't 12 episodes long, so it's not exactly that as much of a challenge as.
Yes,
it was.
I know. I just want to see if he can do it.
Oh my gosh.
So, Matt.
I managed to do it for Mad Max Road Warrior. I can do this here.
I just found an
All
anime
right,
test
then.
piece.
Ready?
1, 2, 3, go, Matt.
Okay, so we start off our story with the Doctor and Jamie. Apparently they had been separated from the TARDIS as they landed on an airfield, and someone is stealing it from them. The truck manages to get away, but they contact one of the guys on the airfield to try and figure out where it went. They're given a fake name and decide not to follow on it, but instead decide to follow the man because his jumpsuit didn't quite fit him right. Upon following him, they find out that the man later on gets jumped by the person he was working for, and as they're trying to get information, he too runs away yet again and disappears from the plot entirely. However, the Doctor and Jamie are given a few items to send them off to a coffee shop where they wait to try and find out about a person that they're looking for. While they are waiting there, they are finally contacted by someone who tells them that they are to be expected at an antique shop at about 10 o'clock that evening. They sneak in early and start having a look around. They notice that the antiques are in pristine condition and look like they should be brand new, although they are Victorian era and they very much look like authentic Victorian era. To which Jamie's actually the first one to come up with the idea that perhaps the person who is selling these antiques is possibly a time traveler from the Victorian era, and is trying to make extra money for what reasons they are unsure about yet. They then come in contact with the person that met them at the cafe, to which they figure out that he was an informant about he was essentially one of the people hired there to try and help sell some of their wares, and that he's trying to figure out as much as the Doctor and Jamie are trying to figure out. They are also told that apparently the TARDIS was taken out back. So they are trying to get back to the TARDIS, as well as trying to figure out why this particular salesman is selling these strange wares and where he got them from. They managed to get further into the building, and they find the person that they were originally looking for dead. I believe his name was Kenneth?
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
His name was Kennedy, and he's laying down on the floor with half the picture of the Doctor ripped apart. As the man that they were originally getting help from runs off to contact the police, which was a wise idea to do, even admitted by the Doctor, they are still trying to find out what is actually going on here. They notice that something is very peculiar, especially with the way Kennedy is laying, and with a little bit of looking around, they figure out that there must be a secret behind the door case. Just as they figure this out, much like the previous locked door, it too suddenly opens up. They very cautiously enter, but thanks to Jamie's jump forward attitude, they accidentally activate a trap, which knocks both the Doctor and Jamie out. The shop owner then, I forget his name.
Waterfield?
Waterfield. I'll just go with Waterfield. The shop owner Waterfield walks in and takes them back into the Victorian era back in the 1600s, using apparently a time machine. Is then revealed to the Doctor, at least, after getting there and coming to again, that they are all now trapped with the Daleks, and that the Daleks want to test out a plan. They want to try and send Jamie in particular, since he is a more or less normal human, off to try and save Victoria Waterfield, the Mr. Waterfield's daughter, and in doing so, try and figure out what qualities make up humans, and try and figure out why these qualities allow humans to continuously defeat Daleks time and time again. So for a little while, Jamie is finally sent off more or less on his own to figure out what he wants to do, to which he, with a little bit of reverse psychology suggestion from the Doctor, goes off to try and find Victoria. He manages to continue to plug through numerous traps and even a attempted assassination, and in fact saves his assassinator, and the two of them actually continue the rest of the journey to try and find Victoria, because apparently both of them feel at least somewhat attached to Victoria as a generally nice person to begin with. So they go off to try and find her, as she is supposedly still trapped by the Daleks, keeping Mr. Waterfield under their thumb. So after Jamie more or less passes the test, they try to kidnap Victoria back. She is taken along with the assassination bodyguard to the Dalek ship, which is hidden as a wardrobe closet. And the Doctor is left with Jamie to try and figure out what to do. They try originally to find Victoria, but find her missing. And then they find out about the attempted destruction of the lab that they are inside this home, and are forced to use the spare time machine, which was apparently made by Mr. Waterfield with help from the Daleks, which is why he was able to use it earlier to teleport all three of them. They go to Skaro to try and keep after the Daleks, to which they land more or less the same time as the other Dalek ship does. They proceed somewhat cautiously into the base, after also having previously worked out their plans for the human general qualities that equal up to why the Daleks are defeated, and actually introduced it to three of the Daleks as tests. The Daleks then got mixed in with the regular ones in their attempt to leave, and they believe at first that they had bumped into one of the test Daleks, but the Doctor noticed that the symbol wasn't quite right, and realized that the Daleks had found out about his test ones still being loose, and got rid of that particular Dalek. The other Daleks are still out there on loose, and possibly had some of their marks removed. And the Doctor also still has a capsule with the good side of what they made for making good Daleks. But as they get to Skaro, they are taken, I believe it's to the Emperor Dalek?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
it's called the Dalek Emperor.
Yes, to the
Emperor
Dalek.
of the Daleks or Dalek Emperor.
And so, upon meeting the Dalek Emperor, they find out that he was taking everything that the Doctor made and reversed it in order to make a perfect opposite, which would be for making perfect Daleks, essentially. What the real Dalek code should be, and use that as an actual weapon against humanity then, and turn them more or less into Daleks as well. They then try to trick the Doctor into being turned into a Dalek as well in the same mind-erasing mannerisms, but the Doctor, being a Time Lord, is far beyond these usual mind-controlling methods. He then tricks the Daleks into letting him near the machines for a little bit and slips in his good version. And so when it is suggested that they get rid of the test Daleks by subverting them to the Dalek purification, that instead he is making a whole bunch of these Daleks into Daleks that would question rather than just strictly obey, and thus turning them into good Daleks. This then raises a revolt, which allows the Doctor and the others to finally slip away, while Skaro just essentially burns up under its own now flip-flopped Dalek ideals. And that more or less is that. Other than Victoria's father dying, trying to save the Doctor towards the end, and Victoria deciding to stay with Jamie and the Doctor as they leave Skaro.
All right. And you did that in 8 minutes, 12 seconds.
Ugh.
Oh.
I didn't have anything planned either, so if I had bullet points, I might have been able to keep it better. But
I never use bullet points, and I frequently just wing it.
see, I do reviews
See,
with bullet points usually.
when I do that, I manage to get everything out of order, and it's all wibbly wobbly, non-sequential bullshit.
You
That's why I
wanted to
only
say
volunteer
Tommy-Wimey,
when I have
didn't
the
you?
script.
Or if I have bulletin points, they're all in my mind, and I take a few moments to organize them. All right. So
Still not bad.
one of the things we can really glean by this was supposed to be the final Dalek episode in Doctor Who.
Quite possibly, yes.
That
I
was
got that
their
vibe.
intent, because at the time,
Or at least it was written with the idea that it definitely may be what not necessarily that they wanted it to be.
because at that time Terry Nation was taking his ball and going elsewhere. They didn't think they would get the Daleks back. They did in a couple seasons later, but at the time they thought this was it. That's the last of we'll see of the Daleks.
That is until Terry Nation suddenly realized, oh wait, it's only popular in Britain. Shoot.
So yes, NBC television. I'm pitching you this idea. Think of this: Dalek Empire, and Terry Nation knew he was in trouble when a exec looked at the other and went, "What's a Dalek?" And then he describes the Daleks, and they look at each other and go, "You've got to be kidding me."
Nowadays, they probably
That
hop
won't
on that.
sell here.
But
Of course, the thing is, if Terry Nation was pitching that idea today, networks would frickin' jump at it. But unfortunately, he's dead.
To be fair, I don't think they'd let Terry Nation do the writing either.
Yeah. That probably wouldn't be the best idea.
It's a great idea, Terry. We'll buy it. We'll get Joss Whedon to write it.
Yes.
So they'd be like, so here's the deal. We'll take your Daleks and we'll make a soap opera where the Daleks invade at the end of every episode.
We'll call Whedon. He'll have the idea that one girl has the power to stand up against the Daleks.
There we go.
And we'll get Neil Gaiman to do the couple episodes.
We'll call it Cindy, the Dalek Slayer.
I was thinking more Arrow, but
Wait, how do you guys know the plot to the Dalek Invasion Big Finish series? Or Dalek Empire?
Dun dun dun.
Which I have actually been listening to. The first
less urge to listen to them.
First episode is known as Invasion anyway. And yes, there is a girl with a special power to defeat the Daleks.
well, as long as it's Ace and her magic baseball bat, I'm fine with that.
It's a woman who's a geologist or geology scientist type
Well,
person.
if her
She
last
studies
name is
minerals.
McShane and she has a magical baseball bat, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay. So I think it's time to move on to our basics, likes and dislikes. Popping up my Skype window to see that Matt is once again number 1 on my list.
Uh-oh.
I'm always number 1 on the list. All right.
I think it's because we use the same Skype conversation over and over and over again, and you're first on the lineup.
You're number
Possibly.
1, Matt.
Skype. If you are listening, directors of Skype, we would like a new feature called Shuffle People in this conversation.
Yes.
Random shuffle.
Random shuffle, random.
But general thing I really like.
Either that, or I could
story.
start rolling a D4 whenever we do this.
I like it.
You could do that.
That could technically work, but so favorite thing about this, I like that instead of just being a normal menacing threat, the Daleks are actually being somewhat intelligent in this one too. They are actually setting up a really good, intricate plot to try and trap the Doctor and succeed.
Would you call it a master plan?
Yeah.
Zing! I think it's a better master plan than master plan.
Master plan. I'd have to agree with that. But that's, mind you, saying the fact that master plan itself wasn't really that master of a plan.
No, it wasn't. It was kind of like a fuckful plan that just went crazy and started spinning out of control and then wound back there. But yeah, I'd say that I quite like the actual intelligence setup for the Daleks this time.
All right.
The Daleks are doing smart things.
What I liked in general was the way, the way the story unfolded with the mystery of where the TARDIS was, and as the Doctor learned things, the audience learned things. The way, like, you were able to keep up with the Doctor and Jamie as events happened.
All right. I really didn't see that so much because they kept cutting to the bad guys during some of this, so you got a little bit more than what the Doctor and Jamie did.
I mean, like the fact that the Dalek, we don't see the Dalek Emperor until the Doctor does. We don't actually find out what the Emperor's plan is until he tells the Doctor.
Right.
Technically, yeah.
Speaking of the Dalek Emperor, I had no idea until this episode that he actually did sound pretty much like he did in the new Who series, other than it being a different voice actor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true that he does. Yeah.
But it was that same shouting reverb.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't realize that actually came straight from this episode.
Except
Sorry, I stole it I stole yours with an aside there, Tim. I took over your favorite.
No, that's okay.
All right, Bill.
What I had actually written was the Dalek Emperor outsmarting the Doctor and liking the whole thing around that, but that was pretty much covered by Matt. So I'm going to go with, I like how they managed to take the alchemy idea that they were using for for the goals of these characters and how they were trying to achieve time travel and running with it without making it completely unworkable in Doctor Who. For example, they don't actually come straight out and say whether or not their mirror alchemy time machine actually worked because the Daleks showed up before they could actually use it. And they managed to work that whole thing in with, obviously this is what these people believe, without making it completely, unworkable within Doctor Who and, at all either.
Yeah, I had actually made, before Matt volunteered to do the summary, I had made some mental cliff notes for it. And one of the things that were in my mental cliff notes was to mention that guy who is the last surviving alchemist, whose name isn't Edward Elric or Nicholas Flamel.
Hmm. I always wondered about alchemy. Like, if you could make gold from other metals, wouldn't that devalue gold?
Yes,
No,
Right.
because
but it would.
in theory, only the one person would be able to do it.
Oh.
Yeah, but the whole concept of if you could do it, even if you did eventually devalue the metal, you would be fucking rich before
Yeah,
it
you'd
happened.
be rich by the time that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Alchemy was the medieval equivalent of the get-rich-quick scheme.
Pretty much.
Although there was a little more effort. It was like if you could find a way to do it.
Right.
So, 80 billion people, well, not 80 billion, but, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pseudoscientists spent their lives trying to figure out how to turn other metals into gold. Later, they figured that the closest would be turning lead because it had a similar weight and chemical property. Both were soft metals, both were heavy metals. But nobody succeeded, and a few of them went mad. Lead poisoning does nasty things, y'all.
Yeah.
Of course, as of now, it's pretty much become any scientist in a steampunk work is pretty much an alchemist, which is essentially what this is. Even though it was out 20 years before the name steampunk came into popularity.
Well, this one wasn't really steampunk.
It's Victorian era sci-fi written after the fact, which is pretty much what steampunk is. There's no steam-powered things in it, but other than that...
steam-powered things is kind of an indicative to a steampunk genre.
Yes.
This would be more of a gas lamp science fiction, I believe, is what they refer to this as. Because it's not really alternate history, it's history with a touch of sci-fi going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we could argue semantics over the genre list for all night.
But let's not, shall we?
And I will save that for a panel discussion at some convention or another.
Is Evil of the Daleks steampunk?
What is steampunk versus what is gas lamp fantasy, gas lamp science fiction? What is Victorian thriller? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of a panel discussion idea than anything else. So I'm going to move on. Aaron, what was your favorite in general thing?
In general thing, I kind of like how just kind of how things could be so easily corrupted, I guess. I did kind of genuinely feel sorry for what's his face, the alchemist. Gosh, I can't remember his name.
Victoria's father?
No,
Waterfield?
Victoria's
Not Victoria's father, the other guy.
Oh.
The other guy always came off as creepy, but then again, they didn't have much tree for him.
Later on, he became creepy.
The one who was funding things, you mean?
Yeah. Later on,
Maxtable.
he became creepy. Yeah, Maxtable. Yeah.
Well, later on, but you find out that he was that way the whole time, considering that he was the one responsible for the kidnapping and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really feel sorry for him because he was a bit of an asshole.
He
To
didn't
be
really
honest,
care
I,
anything.
Through and through.
to be honest, I didn't really like anything in general about the serial.
Well, if you want to pass, you can pass.
Yeah. That's like the closest thing I can think of.
All right. Well, what I liked was the concept of basically, I liked the human factor as a way of, humanizing Daleks, giving them kind of a conscience, a soul, so to speak. I like it as a concept, and I think this was better executed in this than it definitely was in Daleks Take Manhattan,
Yes.
or Daleks in Manhattan, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think this actually was a better way of doing it than they did there, but I still think it could be handled even better than this.
Yeah.
But thus said, I still like the concept of introducing something into Daleks to make them less evil.
Right.
All right, so what you didn't like about this serial, and again, we'll start with you, Matt.
Oh, I didn't like about the cereal. Um, um, I'm trying to find anything overall that was really a really bad nitpick outside of the usual technical problems. But
Well, remember, this is an in general nitpick, not a specific scene nitpick.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, Aaron, like Constable Atta, I never really cared for him. He already looked kind of oddly off-putting to begin with, and he just continues to prove me right that he's a rather nasty, unlikable person, to be honest. And he continues to get worse the more we know about what he's been doing in the background.
All right.
I mean, that makes her a good villain, but they kind of ruined the fact that this character could have been secretly a really decent guy. Instead, just went for the basic on-the-cuff, even for appearance for him, that he was a bad guy.
Everything for what I want.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tim?
I didn't like the fact that I didn't get to see a lot of the scenes that I think would have been some of my favorite scenes. Because this is, again, a lost episode.
For the most part.
Well,
Most
that's
part.
kind of beyond our capability to help with that.
Yeah.
If I was rich,
Still.
I would hire somebody to reanimate all of the first and second Doctor serials, even the ones that already had footage.
But you do also tell us to judge via the telesnaps too, which is what
Yeah.
we've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I say to ratings adjust because of that. What I'm saying here is it's kind of hard to say. I don't know. Maybe you love it so much that that's your least favorite thing. I guess so.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
to
shut up.
piggyback off of Tim's, there's this one scene toward the end that it's really weird as a recon, but was not that way in the beginning, where it's Maxtable and a Dalek both chanting "kill, kill, kill" over just a photo of Maxtable's face looking crazy, and I'm like, I wonder what this scene actually looked like.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
It's
It was like,
really weird as it is.
this is teasing us, and
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have seen Kamel in action.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Kamel, the assassin guy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, he talks so much about what he did in here, and you really don't see anything he does,
Mhm.
because it's all in telesnaps.
Right.
All right, Bill, what's your least favorite?
Mine's an either or because I'm not sure if my complaint is actually valid or if the reconstruction makes it feel that way. But to me, it comes off as being overcrowded because I just can't keep track of all the characters. And again, that might just be because I'm not actually seeing them move on the screen. But ultimately, it just all of outside of the main two Victorians, the TARDIS cast, and the Daleks, I have just trouble keeping track of who everyone is, but that might be due to the reconstruction rather than an actual flaw of the episode.
All right. I didn't have too much of that issue.
Yeah.
I did a bit early on when you had Maxtable's, thugs or whatever, or Waterfield's thugs, whoever they were.
Right.
Because a lot of them just seemed kind of like random thugs. It's like when the guy died, I wasn't quite sure who it was until later.
Yeah.
But once everybody went into the past or whatever, I usually had a good grip on who everybody was.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Aaron? What was your least favorite thing?
I guess I didn't like a lot of the mansion scenes, actually. That's kind of sad because I'm usually kind of pleasantly, entertained by Victorian decor and costumes and those kinds of stories and everything. And all the episodes that took place in the mansion just really bored me. I mean, maybe that's because the fight scenes weren't animated, or you can't see them in action anymore. So maybe
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
probably a
it
major
just
part of it.
it just really dragged on for me, and it was, my mind started wandering, and I started losing touch with the story and everything, and it just wasn't.
Oh, I fully agree with you there. I spent most of the middle episodes queued for PvP and AO.
Yeah, I tried to watch them because there was text telling you what was going on, and
I can't stand teleclips that everything's in text.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There were definitely a few episodes where I'm just like, why is nothing going on? And I'd look back, and there'd be something scrolling across the screen. Like, yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
lot of pregnant pauses in this serial
Yeah.
where there's nobody saying anything, and it's just wall of text in the telesnap, and you're just like,
Which again,
ugh.
you
I-
either need to have it read to you or what's going on, or you need to actually have the full video there. And
Yeah, and I
what's the
remember.
option?
Yeah, having someone read the telesnap captions would have been an excellent move. I did wind up, surfing on Steam on my laptop that I had set up on a TV tray across from my desktop, and I would turn over and I'd be like, oh, well, not only do I have to stop searching on Steam for stuff, but now I have to rewind my video a little bit and see what I just missed, which
I had that a
prolonged the
couple times, too.
process on top of everything.
All right. What I can't really tell because this might have also just been the same telesnap lifting over and over, but what I really didn't like was the Dalekized Maxtable, because he really just looked like somebody that had been through like fucked up brainwashing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He just had that wide-eyed look.
Yeah.
And really, if you think if somebody had been Dalekized, you think they would have become an asshole. And if they were an asshole before, they would have become a meaner asshole.
One thing, I don't
You
think
know?
anybody who was Dalek factored used the word exterminate.
Yeah, you would think that would have slipped in. You would have thought that they would have followed orders, thought themselves superior to all other beings, and would exterminate people at will. That would sound like a Dalek factor to me. How about you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'd also hate themselves for being in a human body.
Mm.
Yeah. If you look
So
at it, this
yeah,
is
this
is the next step away from the Robomen. We actually
Yeah.
see
the
them.
thing is, the Dalekization didn't look that different from Robomen. It really didn't.
Right. I mean, I think their response time was a little faster than Robomen,
But they had that same,
Very robotic
vague look.
Yeah.
about them. Yeah.
So that didn't sit well with me. Okay, so scenes that you liked, Matt.
Scenes I liked. It's too bad we only have one episode of actual footage.
And odds and ends here and there.
Yeah. I have to say that we did bring up a couple of interesting things. Actually, one of the bits of found footage I think that I did get to see that looked interesting was some of the found footage that they still had for the Dalek Emperor. That particular set and what they had all going through there looked kind of interesting.
I'm not sure if that was actually recovered footage or CGI.
It was recovered footage. I could tell. I've seen some of the colored pictures of what they took when
Because I know
in this episode
some of the
too.
ones I was watching, some of the Dalek movements and stuff, scenes that was just Daleks were actually CGI'd.
Yeah,
Some of it was.
some of it was
and I was
switching
watching
back and forth.
Yeah, and I was watching some of that too, and not all of that was CGI. Some of that was definitely found footage. You can tell by the actual look of it. The CGI was a little too clean.
Every time you say found footage, I'm picturing Jamie running around with a camcorder.
Well, it was a Dalek fight scene.
The Blair Dalek Project.
Dr. Victoria, I am so sorry.
You just see Jamie standing in a corner, and you hear
Only get
shots
half
of
of Jamie's
exterminate
face.
going off in the background, and then all of a sudden the camera just falls over after you hear a blast.
All right, your favorite scene, Tim?
My favorite scene was the scene where the Doctor confronts the Dalek for the first time. I thought that was perfectly shot and set up. The way he's like arguing with the Maxtable and Waterfield, like, you keep telling me, who are these creatures? Like, what are they doing? And
The time the Dalek walks up behind him, and he's like, I forget what he says, but he's like, does it all make sense now, except in a Dalek way? And the Doctor's like, oh yes, now it makes sense.
Yeah, and just the performance by Patrick Troughton in that moment, like the look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the look on his
As he's
face started the
fully-
second he mentioned static electricity.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you get to watch that scene as the creeping suspicion keeps
Yeah.
building in him. So by
Yeah.
the time the Dalek shows up, he's like, yeah. You can almost see the internal them going, called it!
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it's still like, I called it, and I wish it wasn't what I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Called it.
Yep.
I'm sorry I called it.
Mhm.
So, Bill, favorite scene?
I'm not sure if this is the same scene Matt was talking about, but when the Emperor and the Doctor both confront each other for the first time and each tell each other their master plan, and first the Emperor's like, I've won, then the Doctor's, no, I've won, and the Emperor's like, no, I've won.
I one-upped you, Doctor. No, I didn't say specifically that scene. I was thinking more like the battle sequences.
I knew that you knew that I knew that I'd be thinking that way.
Right.
But I didn't. I only knew that you knew that I knew. Did you know that?
It didn't quite get to that, but there was a kind of a hint of that.
Yeah.
Which means that my glass isn't poisoned. Sip. Ha! Plop. Mikey got it.
All right, Aaron, what was your
Oh.
favorite scene?
The Doctor going for a ride on a Dalek. It was
Yes.
amazingly
That was
awesome.
going to be one of my least.
It's taking
Dizzy
me
Dalek,
by.
Dizzy Dalek.
Dizzy Doctor.
That was actually on my list of least favorite scenes.
Yeah, mine too.
I liked it because it was so creepy. And
It's
so
the
meta.
Daleks trying to be cute, and then
Yeah.
it's just like so not cute.
And it's just like Patrick Troughton is just having so much fun riding on top of the Dalek. It's actually kind of meta. They almost kind of break the whole suspension of disbelief. So
I'm not sure if that's almost, honestly.
Let's take this essential
So,
disbelief and
my
just
favorite
break this
scene,
apart,
and
me.
this is recovered footage, is the Dalek revolt at the end of the serial.
Mm-hmm.
Where you see the Daleks going up against the Dalek Emperor, and them eventually killing the Dalek Emperor. And you see this burned out shell that used to be the Dalek Emperor.
Yeah, some of that too. Yeah.
That whole bit was just kind of awesome. All right, scene you didn't like. Matt.
Scene I didn't.
And mind
like.
you, never mind.
Which one to go with? Really trying to focus. Which scene did I really like the least? I think that the maybe it's because of the telesnaps. I'm not sure, but I think that the one guy kind of having this split personality problem where he keeps fighting what I assume is Dalek reprogramming really doesn't work, at least in on telesnaps. Just kind of comes off as really clunky. Especially since they
Camel?
bugged it like 5 to 6 times. No,
Are you
the
referring
guy
to
working under Kimmel, the guy the fancy necktie and everything.
Mhm.
He's supposed to like engaged or getting married to some other gal in the building too. Younger guy. He like inquisitive. He was like the first person to actually talk to Jamie, and then he goes into split personality for a moment, and then comes back.
Yep, I remember that
All
guy.
right.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem to come off quite right. Maybe it's
It's
telesnaps, I don't know, but he just
it's-
kind of meh.
Yeah, it's very much a what do you call it? I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It's very much kind of a lead up to the whole Robo. He's kind of a pseudo Robo man. Only he has
Kinda.
he has a black kind of control device tucked away into his collar.
Oh, was
That's
that it? What it
interfering with his
was?
brain. Yeah, it was interfering with his brain waves, so they were kind of overriding his brain waves, and that was supposed to be kind of a lead up to like the whole Dalekization of a human being. Only
Yeah.
with Maximal it was permanent, and with this guy it was kind of pseudo permanent, which is weird. Why wouldn't they just graft it onto him like a Robo Man?
Yeah. Yeah, why wouldn't they just directly do it? It would probably be a lot more efficient. Meh. Yeah, he just kind of came off as really weak sauce and pointless a lot of the time.
All right. Tim?
I'd say my least favorite scene was the one where it's revealed Maxtable has been working with the Daleks, like to get the secret of alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, I have sort of run out of patience for the people who delude themselves into thinking that teaming up with a Dalek will pay off for them. In the
Yeah, it does seem to be something the Daleks exploit rather consistently.
Yeah.
And they find the stupidest people who seem to have way too much power all the time.
The only one that ever
Cybermen too.
that I ever agreed with that is one that we'll actually have to get to in Resurrection of the Daleks a few weeks from now, and that was Lytton, because he was a contracted mercenary, and the Daleks at that point were so weak that they needed to contract mercenaries.
Yeah.
So,
but he was also the only one that was actually decent at his job.
True. And all he wanted was money.
Yeah.
The Daleks don't care about money, so they'll actually pay him rather than, killing him to keep from having to pay.
They didn't have to because it all went south, but still.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, these people that want these secrets or, the power, it's like Daleks don't share power.
Right.
Daleks very seldom
think
share
they will?
secrets.
It's like if they're
You think
giving you
they'll share
control of
power
a
then?
planet, it's because they're going to come back later.
No,
Yeah.
it's because they're going to blow it up when they're done.
Or
Daleks
that.
have this little thing called scorched planet policy. When they leave it, they blow it up.
Or it's like,
they burn it so there's no
we'll-
life left on it.
We'll leave you in charge of this mining camp because we can't be bothered right now.
Right.
And you might be useful later. Oh wait, you're no longer useful. Zap.
But
Burn it all.
technically speaking, though, the Daleks still control the camp. They're just leaving a human or
Yeah.
alien subordinate in charge, but it's still Dalek territory. When the mine runs out and the Daleks have no use for the planet, gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see that in this serial because they blow up the mansion when they leave.
Right.
And then
And
the
that's-
moron
that's
still
kind
is
of-
trying to think that the dogs are going to help him.
Mm-hmm. So, Aaron, Wait, Bill first. Sorry, I skipped Bill.
Well, to avoid the one that I think you're going to probably have similar points to me on, I'm going to pick a different, and that is, it's either the first or the second scene with Victoria. I'm not sure if it's written really stilted or just acted really stilted, but the one where basically the Daleks ask her a question, and then she sits there, and they're like, answer, and she's like looking, like waiting for a cue card, and she's like, yes, and then it happens again like 2 or 3 times, and I'm just like, this is just really awkward.
It is. What it's supposed to be is that she's supposed to be too scared to say anything. And she's supposed to gasp it out because she's really, really supposed to. Victoria's supposed to be really.
It doesn't come across like, I don't know. It doesn't come across as her being scared.
It might be because of the telesnaps.
Really
Might be because of telesnaps. Yeah.
It might be because.
I think that's in a non-reconstructed episode, though. I thought that was the episode that there's.
No, that was a reconstructed episode. No, that was not footage.
I think that was. I think we don't really meet Victoria until like episode 3, and by that point we're back into the reconstruction.
I thought it was episode 2.
No. She's not.
No, we just see the portrait of Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Even for the reconstruction, though, I kind of agree with Bill. It did feel kind of stilted, and it did feel like there were a few pauses that were too long.
Yeah.
It is possible, like I said, but again, it's really hard to gauge when you can't actually see the person that's acting act.
Mm-hmm.
When they're using a photo from one moment, which might have been the lead-in.
Actually,
before they're asked the question.
I think actually there might have been a little bit of footage of her number 2.
I think that was in episode 2 because it started with her feeding the birds, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, she might not have really gotten into the role yet, or what, or she was just given bad direction. Who was the director for episode 2?
Good question.
It would have been either Derek Martinus or Timothy Combe. The story was written by David Whitaker, who has, good writing credits. Derek Martinus directed Galaxy 4, Spearhead from Space, and a few serials in between. Galaxy 4, Mission to the Unknown, was a director in The 10th Planet and The Ice Warriors and Spearhead from Space. So that's, 10th Planet was actually pretty good direction-wise.
Mm-hmm. So this must have been the other guy then.
Timothy Cohn was director for Keys of Moranus, Reign of Terror, and only directed model sequences in Evil.
Model sequences, which are actually pretty decently done for model sequences, but yeah, someone else directed this one, so it must have been a one-off guy.
It would have had to been Derek Martinus. So I don't think it was the direction. Either the writing was stilted or her acting was just not good enough, and that might be only why Victoria lasted a season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Victoria seemed a little bit iffy.
And from what I understand, she was mainly cast to be a pretty face rather than for her acting.
She was cast to be a scream queen.
Mm-hmm.
She is the only companion to date whose screams have actually killed monsters. I'm not kidding. Her final performance, apparently the seaweed attacking this coastal base was sound sensitive, so they amplified her screams to kill the monster.
That's it. I mean, Buffy killed a monster that way once too.
I keep getting her confused with Zoe. I think it's because I keep remembering Zoe's personality, but then kind of grafting Victoria's face over the top
face
of her.
on it.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help that so many of both of their episodes are lost.
And that it's also all black and white, and they're both white gals with black hair.
Zoe's along the lines of someone like Vicky or Nyssa, or not. Yeah.
To be honest,
like
Victoria only has one surviving episode, and that's Tomb.
One surviving full serial, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. One
Which-
surviving serial.
Which
in its
which
entirety,
was
and that's two.
which wasn't found until what, the 90s?
92, 93.
Early
And
I was thinking 94, so I was
most,
close.
not all, but most of Zoe's episodes survive, especially now.
Yes. Most of them. Yeah.
So now it's Aaron's least favorite scene.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Uh,
I guess my least favorite scene would have to be them all sitting around in the room on Skaro waiting for the Daleks, waiting to figure out what the Daleks are going to do to them. For some reason, it just seemed to drag out, not super long, but long enough to make me kind of shift in my seat more than a few times and go, like, get on with it! Get on with it, next
It doesn't help
boys!
that it was telesnaps too, and they had like only 2 or 3 telesnaps for it.
Yeah, and it's just like they're sitting there trying to convince Maxtable to change his mind, and it's just not going to happen. And you know,
This has been tired and tried already. We can move on now, please.
yeah, and it's everybody sitting in the room because they've all, except for the Doctor, who is playing his clarinet, which is the most enjoyable part of the scene.
Because at least he's doing something.
At least he's doing something. He's doing something that would later on become rather iconic for him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I remember seeing
Well-
a lot of pictures of him playing his flute. I don't know exactly what it is. Is it clarinet? No, it's not a
Recorder,
clarinet.
yeah.
Recorder.
It's a recorder. I used to
Yeah.
play the recorder myself. I was
Yeah, so
I was
did I,
about as
but-
good as. Well, actually, no. Patrick Troughton's better than I am on the recorder.
Yeah. I used to play
I don't
it
think
too,
Patrick
but-
Troughton's particularly good, but he's better than I was.
And it was
I
pretty
think I
much
was
the only
always
good
a
thing.
little
And
bit.
even Kemmel there, and it's just like, come on, Kemmel's not even going to try to do anything. No one's, and Jamie's just kind of sitting there. They're all just sitting there. Do something. Try to look for at least get up
That's
and
not
wander
true. I
around the
think
room.
I think they were bickering.
They were fighting, but they were fighting on their butts. They could have at least gotten up to try to find, a way out of the room.
Are you sure they weren't? Are you sure that wasn't just the telesnaps?
Again, telesnaps,
Yeah,
we don't
that's
really
true.
know what was actually going on, and it was probably more exciting in the actual video than it was from
I
what we
didn't
got to
actually
see.
hear any footsteps or anything, and I didn't see any text.
You don't know.
indicating
You don't
that-
always get the footsteps on the old recordings,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and
unless
and
you're
there
supposed to
wasn't-
get the footsteps.
Yeah, there wasn't any text either indicating that there was movement or supposed to be movement, other than them
But
just
why
sitting
would
there.
they say so unless it was really important? So
I'm not saying that they did anything in particular, but I'm saying is it might have been a little more animated than what it looked like.
Mhm.
Yeah. But still, going from the telesnapped version, it was pretty kind of not so fun to sit through. I wouldn't quite say tedious, but not that great.
is borderline get on with it moment.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I have to go with not liking either scene with the humanized Daleks.
Yeah, they went a bit over the top with that one. I don't remember Jamie's emotions, including randomly playing around and picking people up and spinning in a circle.
Right. I mean, if the Daleks did that once with the kind of I can feel, I understand kind of, moment of elation,
Right.
that would be one thing. But them spinning around going dizzy, Dalek, that was just...
Yeah, for the second
oh.
time.
By the time they got to the
these
train
were-
scene, I was cringing.
These were fully mature Daleks that they put these brains into, right?
Actually,
Yes.
the first 3 were actually supposed to be children.
Well, I think he was saying like the human factor within them was children, like it made them a baby by putting the human factor in them.
And then they
Or
would
something.
mature. Because I
They
know,
were-
I
yeah, they're
remember him
They were
stating
meant to
that.
quickly mature, yeah.
Yeah.
They would mature in a few hours, but they never did.
They still had a very odd way of speaking, and
Yeah.
and they were somewhat childish in their counter argument and so forth.
Maybe he was wrong. Maybe it would take much
I would have
longer.
loved to. I would have loved to have seen the 3 Daleks during the revolt, you see them as leaders. It's like,
Yes.
right, you, and you do this, and you hear emotion in the Dalek grate, you know?
Right.
And then you have the younger ones questioning, and they go, "Because we need to protect ourselves. Quickly, go!" And they
Because
actually
they'll kill
understand.
us if they don't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would like to see a Dalek holding a crayon trying to imitate drawing the symbol on the bottom of another Dalek.
Right.
It's just
One-
like, wait a
one-
second,
one-
how did that
Although-
work?
One of them draws a delta with his plunger.
Yeah.
Although with Daleks and drawing, I'm now with what I'd said earlier. I'm now getting the the mental concept of a bunch of Daleks standing there as a Dalek comes out with half of its dome in blue and giving the entire kind of Braveheart speech.
Or speaking of which, I'm
Would one of them have a mohawk?
considering all their human factor was taken from Jamie. What if one of them picks up the idea that they're Scottish?
Starts speaking with a
Well,
Scottish
they are kind of
accent.
wearing they are kind of wearing what looks like kilts with bumps on it. Just imagine if they redid those in plaid.
I am Dalek McCloud at the Clan McCloud.
That would be awesome.
There can be only one.
Why do you think I went with the Braveheart concept, Bill?
Right.
But yeah, the Dizzy Daleks was just way too childish and basic.
Yeah, that's like.
I mean, if the Doctor had taken Daleks right out of the birthing tanks
Well, again, that's why I
and
thought
put
it was
those in
supposed to
them
be
and
the
put them
first
into a
three.
machine, I could see that, but
Yeah.
not full-size Daleks.
Yeah, not full-grown Daleks. Like the ones that they mind changed. No, they should have gone
Like if
past
this
that
was
pre.
like, yeah, I'm like if this was like a Sarah Jane's or something where a younger audience than even Classic Who was aimed at, then maybe, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
it's a little much for Doctor
with
Who.
doing that to a full-grown Dalek in the first place, you probably would have made the Dalek schizoid. Because he had been too set in his ways, too old, and probably would have started rejecting the brain, causing, issues.
Now I'm imagining a Dalek
But,
fighting
and
with
again,
his own
this was-
brain.
It'd
You
probably
don't
come out
have to.
something
I
like
think
Dalek
it's
Con.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's getting close to when
Yeah.
we 15 minutes before, so why don't we move on to our final thoughts? Starting with Matt.
I felt that we got a few nitpicks, and to be honest, this particular story suffers a lot of the same feelings as the previous story, where we just don't have enough actual video to make up for the fact that there are lots and lots of quiet scenes where you actually need either a description as to what's going on or an actual moving video to tell you what's actually happening. Without it, it kind of falls flat in places. But for what we do get, there's actually a lot of really interesting stuff. I think far more actually than Dalek Master Plan, I think. Although Master Plan itself had some good highlights too. Guess that's it for my bit.
All right. Tim?
I really enjoyed this episode, this story better than Dalek's Master Plan.
Mhm.
This should have been the Dalek's Master Plan. And like I said, but it's just that it was just a tease the way, the telesnaps were all we have, and I don't like that. I wish we had this episode. This of all the lost episodes, I think this is one of the bigger tragedies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
All right. Is that everything, Tim?
yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, Bill?
This is actually a better episode than I expected it to be. Altogether, I found it to have more of a plot and such than Power of the Daleks did, and ultimately just mostly enjoyed the episode. Other than a few negative things, all of which were discussed. It is definitely a shame that it's missing, and that definitely how little of it we can see definitely impacts the amount I can enjoy it. But I could definitely see this being one of my top episodes if we could actually watch the whole thing.
All right. Aaron?
I actually didn't. I was kind of disappointed by this episode. I was kind of excited because it was Victoria's introduction, and then she just kind of fell flat, and then they get stuck in the mansion for so long, and it's obvious who the villains are, and then there's a bunch of other extraneous characters that don't really move the plot along all that much. They could easily have been cut. For example, the was it Maxtable's daughter or so? I can't remember. And there was also there was also the maid who was supposed to be set up as a companion, and instead they went with the woman playing Victoria because the one playing the maid turned it down. Actually, that's why the maid had so many scenes in it. But yeah, I don't know. I actually think she may have been a better companion than Victoria myself, but yeah, I just maybe if it were fully out there, I would have enjoyed it more, but I don't know. I didn't quite like it all that much.
All right. Well, according to popular opinion, Evil of the Daleks, and this is based off of people that saw it when it aired, Evil of the Daleks was the greatest Dalek episode until 1975's Genesis of the Daleks. Watching it in its current form, all telesnapped and everything, I fail to see why. It is largely tedious. 7 parts of basically too much, nothing going on. It really suffers from the telesnap effects, and it really fails to deliver really much of anything worthwhile. The scenes that are there are a few good ones, but most of the rest of it makes it completely and totally forgettable. I would like to, change what I see. If we ever do get the entire serial intact, but until that time, I have to say that this episode's a bitter disappointment. And now we go to scores. Matt.
I have to agree that the telesnaps really do greatly affect this, in my opinion, which is why I can't rate this one too particularly high. So I have to say that the highest I can give it right now, with a lot of the possibly really good stuff cut out due to telesnaps, I can't give this much more than a 3.5, I guess, right now.
All right. Wow. All right. Tim.
Yeah, I have the feeling that this would have been one of my favorite stories if it had been full, but with the telesnaps, I can't give it anything higher than a 4.
Wow,
But
that's...
it could have been a 5, I think.
All right. Bill.
I'm going to echo Matt. I'm in the same position as I was with Power of the Daleks, where I honestly think that if we had the full serial, I'd be giving this a 4.5 or a 4. Most likely a 4, but possibly a 4.5. In its current form, I really can't justify any better than a 3.5, and that's what I'm sticking with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Aaron?
I'm going to go with actually a 2.5 for the telesnap version, possibly a 3 or a 3.5 if the whole thing was intact, and we would have all the action sequences and whatnot to, kind of push everything along. But it dragged for me.
All right. I'm also going to have to go with a 3.0. Because that's actually being generous for me right now. I really do think that its current version is a royal disappointment, and it needs more to be worthwhile, or it needs to be animated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Animated
One
would
or
help.
the other. One or the other. Either way, it needs more work. And that will bring our average for this episode up to 3.3.
3.3, just above average. Just by a tiny bit.
Which puts it on
3
par with Destiny of the Doctor, Vengeance of the Stones, and In the Forest of the Night from Series 8.
Not terrible company.
I'm actually surprised it rates that high.
I'm pretty sure that it would rank even far higher if we actually had the actual footage.
We'd have to see.
We'll have to see someday, I guess, if we're lucky.
By the way, since we're done with the episode, I did recently find that we did miss a sci-fi birthday today. Adrian Palicki, who plays Bobby Morse, a.k.a. Mockingbird, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so far mainly Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., turned 32 today.
All right. Well, that will do it for our podcast on Evil of the Daleks. I believe next week we will be moving up to the Third Doctor and the first of his Dalek outings, which would be Day of the Daleks.
Yep.
Sadly, this is the only time that Jamie, the longest-running companion, got the chance to encounter the Daleks. If you enjoy listening to us, please consider subscribing on twitch.tv/Unearthly Podcast, on our YouTube channel at An Unearthly Podcast, or on mixcloud.com/N_Unearthly_podcast. You can like and subscribe to us on social media on Facebook and Twitter as Unearthly Podcast and Unearthly Pod, respectively. And if you want to contribute and help us grow, you can go ahead on over to patreon.com/Unearthly Podcast. Next week, we will be covering Day of the Daleks, written by Lewis Marks, featuring the Third Doctor. So join us then.
See you all next time.
Fare thee well.